approach. And there's the traditional 60-40. There's Dragon Portfolio, which is a very impressive one, full of the allegory of the dragon, the serpent and the dragon, believe it or not. And that's caught everybody's imagination. But he tested over 100 years. We'll get into that a little bit. Harry Brown's Permanent Portfolio, Ray Dalio's All-Weather Portfolio, and Mebane Faber's Ivy Portfolio. And there are lots of other examples of buy and hold portfolios. And now the question is, how do you ever decide which one to adopt? Let's say you're investing. And it's not easy because, among other things, we can do rankings, we can do back tests, we can follow it live in action over a 10-year period. So this is what it started out with back in 1970, in this particular decade, 1970, 1979. And we have, let me just get that showing properly. For everybody. And at that point, at the very bottom was a ranking was total stock market. And there were a whole bunch of these other allocation strategies that did a lot better. So yeah, there were great improvements, seemingly, but the question is, would they really last? Well, as it turns out, they didn't, because here is the last decade, last 10 years, not really a decade, or depends how you count decades. And now, all of a sudden, we find that the total stock portfolio is actually, the total stock market is actually the winner over the past decade. Now, of course, that is partly an artifact of the fact that we've been straight up so long, and that these more hedged systems or more diversified systems, therefore inherently are not going to do as well as a straight stock market portfolio. Nevertheless, we can see that there are some that don't look too bad, is about all we can say here. And we'll go into the different ones that are currently leading. And there are now newer ones aimed at taking advantage of inflation or being prepared to handle inflation and other such phenomena. But this is more of the same showing here. 16 popular buy and hold strategies and some different rankings. So you'll find they're sort of all over the place. And so and this is another problem that I've got to draw to your attention right now in dealing with this, that has been identified by numerous people. We have been, and for the past many decades, a period of falling interest rates. Well, guess what? They can't fall any lower. So that means that all the benchmarks that have been done, all the strategies that have been developed over this period, which is basically infinity or the longest number of strategies for many decades, are not going to hold exactly right anymore. Because if you look at the interest rates there, you'll see that they have bottomed. Now, could they go lower? Sure, they could go lower, but not all that much lower. So the huge gains that we had in the past in interest rate instruments, bonds, it's not exactly going to be repeated in all probability. Mathematically, that's what they say anyway. If you have a refutation for that, let me know. And one of the very exciting recent portfolios is the Dragon portfolio, and that was invented by Chris Cole, and he tested over 100 years. So he really feels very strongly that that portfolio has a lot of potential and to hold longer than others do. And in actual fact, it has done well in recent years. And it postulates cycles alternating between the serpent and the hawk. And I'll let you look that up. And he's comparing here to his benefit, to his own benefit, with various other strategies. And over, I believe they're the whole 100 years. And so he believes that it's still, I believe, it's not doing quite as well now as as some of the others, but it's not doing badly. Let me just check. Dave, do you know what the time is? 7:07. 7:07? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I don't know if we have time for this or not. We better not take a chance, given the equipment situation. One of the tools you can use to look at the Dragon portfolio is Composer.Trade. I've got the link there. I'll give you this later, and you can run it. I was going to run it during the talk, but to keep it short, I will not do it right now. But suffice to say, Composer.Trade is a very, very easy tool to run. And so it's one you can look at, and there already has most of these predefined strategies in it, and you can modify them if you want. Now, of course, one can take the point of view that modifying them spoils them. We don't have the authority, we don't have the wisdom to modify them, but maybe it'll help you with sensitivity analysis, at least. Harry Brown had what was called a permanent portfolio he invented. And that one has held up fairly well also because it's conservative. The 60/40 portfolio itself, there it is. Let's see, bonds are in orange. It's turned out the 60/40 portfolio as defined has basically been the same as not much different. It's a bit smoother, so maybe you like it. A bit smoother, you look at the gray curve there, than pure stocks. Of course, it was roundly denounced by a lot of people, and they said nothing is invalid, nothing more invalid than the 60/40 portfolio. I'm sure many of you remember that, maybe 10 years ago. And the irony is it's now come back into its own, seemingly. And so right now it's doing one of the best other than pure stocks. As you can see, it's very close to the stocks value. And again, you can look at a version of that at that link in Composer.Trade if you want to. And we've got a comparison of a few of those, just along the lines of what we've already said. Ray Dalio's AllWeather Portfolio is another very well-known benchmark that people use. And it has a lot of stability, a lot to be said for it over many, many years. People haven't given up on it, but again, it's a little bit left behind by the straight-up movement of the stock market in recent years. And what you have to decide is whether you really believe that the straight-up direction of the stock market in recent years will hold, or rather is going to be in any way, it's going to be spoiled, I guess we should say, by future events. And when it does get spoiled, whether some of these strategies that were invented over the past 20 or 30 years will come back into their own. And there is a graph of it versus the S&P. And again, Composer.Trade has that. So if you're getting a theme here, we'll come around to some tools later. It's a Composer.Trade, although a very, very simple-minded tool, has a lot of these tools built in, a lot, or rather examples of these from its users or its people. But more recently, people have turned to tactical asset allocation as a solution to some of these issues. And tactical asset allocation, and I found this a good article that reviewed some of the history of tactical asset allocation, which means you dynamically adjust. You're still in a long-term investment philosophy, but you make adjustments as you go. And the very famous one was Dual Momentum by Gary Antonacci. We had him talk to this group. And I'll take a look at that right now. And Mel Faber, or Faber, did, I believe he's also spoken to this group, and has a number of, he's continually evolving a number of systems. Corey Hosteen is a very, very famous, almost philosopher of allocation strategies. And so he's got a whole bunch of, he's got some refinements of some of these systems. Now, Gary Antonacci's dual momentum system has several variations, and Gary claims, according to this, which I just took off their web, optimalmomentum.com is his website, and he claims still there's two versions, at least two versions of dual momentum. One is global equity momentum, and the other is dual momentum sector based. And as you can see, he's claiming, and I think there's a good potential, that he is ahead even of the S&P over the long term, I guess, a reasonably long term period. And so definitely, I mean, that's the grandfather of all the recent innovative strategies. Here's some examples of dual momentum. There's this chart, the same numbers, and it's showing pretty steady, decent growth. He's got it ahead of the S&P still in this chart, and that's his site. And we'll skip that one. Well, one important point that always comes up is that people backtest strategies, and you may be tempted to do that. I may be tempted to do that, and you may find that it's a great strategy. Odds are overwhelming that you've overfitted. You have to go to extraordinary lengths to avoid overfitting the data. You really shouldn't even develop a strategy by backtesting at all. You should have another philosophy. John. Now, his dual momentum unpublished sector, the sector rotation rules for his dual momentum sector rotation strategy are not published, but people have inferred what they are, and there is a link for, and hopefully we can continue here. That's AllocateSmartly is another good site. And for you to check, they really have comprehensive reviews of all of the strategies, and you can also use them to meld strategies together so you can have your own personal combination. I'll just mention briefly a couple of final message. A couple of final very recent strategies that have both inflation and canary protection, which is the same thing as you might call a crash protection. And here's some good offers. I mean, this is what a lot of people are talking about. If you go to the forums today, people are talking about HAA and another one, Choi's Dividend and Growth Allocation. I've got some information on the slide on that one that is actually done outstandingly. It has a track record. I mean, it has a backtest record showing just phenomenal 10% yield over a huge long period of time. So look into that one. And some online tools. Let me just mention some online tools. We mentioned a couple of them, but Portfolio Visualizer is is an extremely nice tool, which has a lot of mathematical models. The only thing is you have to sort of choose. You fill in a questionnaire type form type thing and describe which particular strategy you want to take and provide it with your data. So it's a little bit lacking in flexibility, but it has fantastic analytics. It has all of the major academic models: Black, Litterman, mean variance analysis, CAPM, principal component analysis, regression. So if you're on the mathematical side, you're going to like that one, Portfolio Visualizer. And there you have to sort of fill in a questionnaire as to what you want to do. So it'll give you lots of ideas. And Composer.Trade now is one of the simplest to use, and it has a huge number of user-written symphonies. That's what they made up that name, is what they call them, covering many of the technical asset classes. And so try that. The slides are going to be available. Here's an example. You can sort of compose a mathematical expression. Believe it or not, you can't do that in Portfolio Visualizer. There's no actual coding that you can do. So Composer.Trade is sort of all coding, but not a lot of sophisticated analysis. And Portfolio Visualizer is more no coding, but an awful lot of mathematical analysis. And then the final one, QuantConnect, would not be considered by many people as even a possibility, but in actual fact, I coded a program in it, a model in it, to do certain things that I could not do in either Portfolio Visualizer or in any of the others. But you'll have to code it in C# or Python. It has tremendous access to data. It even has option data for option traders. So I'm going to try coding some option trades, but among other things, it does have a large number of allocation strategies published by its users. So if you want to do some fancy mathematical calculations, if you want to say, well, I want to do this on day one and this on day two, and I want to, then it really can't be beaten. And this is the kind of code you have in it. Just as an example, you can do it in either C# or in Python. You probably want to do it in Python because you have access to Python libraries. There aren't all that many, or at least not as well organized financial libraries in C#. For online discussion, oddly enough, Bogleheads is still a very, very active. John Bogle was one of the initial inventors of mutual funds. And also there's Reddit. I would suggest a Reddit subreddit, AllocateSmartly. And if you want some really mind-bending techniques, then I would read Corey Hosting's blog, thinknewfound.com. Flirting with models is stuff. And he has diversified dual momentum, but he really gets into in-depth analysis of the theoretical foundations and future scenarios that are possible. And so, any comments? Or questions? Yeah. Yeah, it's faster than I intended, and I wanted to, I wanted to have demos here, but just because we were constrained at the library, I didn't want to exit out of the phone because there's no telling me to get back in again. I really apologize. Again, the idea here is that you're going to have to think about these issues. I realize I don't have any easy answers here, but if you're going to invest at all and do anything other than choose a very simplistic or simple approach, you're going to have to think about these issues. And I'm just trying to give you some places to look, at least. We have to, I think we're just going to, I know we ran way over time from our initial plans. So both here in the library and online, I really appreciate people staying online. Did you have anything else to say? Okay. Okay. Well, any other comments? Well, we'll get you the slides, and we rushed through it, but I think we got some of the main ideas. Anyway.
So I have a question. The title of the presentation was buy and hold. It's really buy and hold.
Well, there's different versions of them. Like some of them are, and some of them aren't. What would be? Do you mean do they rotate? And I put in there the versions. Some of them, like these, I think all seasons portfolio, or some of them they have two versions, but they have one version that's just bonds and S&P, and they then have another version that I think most of them are the ones I had there. Some of the ones I had on the list originally are not all.
For example, the Dragon portfolio, you said that
it doesn't rotate. It doesn't rotate.
So how does it accommodate the periods of the so-called what was it, the dragon and the snake and the hawk?
Oh, that's his. That's it. He just picked Jose. I believe the way he does it is just by a judicious choice of sectors that's good for all time, as far as I know. Take a look. If I'm wrong, let me know. I don't think so. He doesn't rotate. He doesn't alter his allocation. He just tries to get just the right allocation.
So all these people are envisioning that one is going to have a portfolio with a stock that is going to survive for decades.
Well, his was 100 years, like
what stock has survived for 100 years?
No, he has to make he has to make adjustments for that.
Right.
But he tried to do it with integrity. I don't know. He did or not. You can look. I mean, look, if you don't, he's pretty.
Very skeptical when.
Okay. We'll make a note of that.
Even the Dow keeps changing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only that, but he's got sectors in there like gold and so forth that are also very difficult. But I think that would be worth a talk on itself. I think we better go. It's we've kept everybody longer than we wanted. Thank you very much for staying so long, and we'll have to revise some of our thoughts about the future. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
Bye.
Don. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.